Letters and resistance. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, sliding through the mail slot with the casual confidence of correspondents that had no idea it was about to trigger World War III. Vernon Dursley, who had been enjoying his morning ritual of reading the newspaper while muttering about bloody millennials ruining everything, nearly choked on his tea when he saw the envelope. It was addressed in emerald green ink to MX H. Potter. The cupboard under the stairs. 4. Privet Drive. Little whinging. Surrey. Petunia. Vernon's bellow shut the windows. Petunia, get down here now. Petunia came hurrying downstairs, still in her dressing gown, her horse-like face creased with worry. What is it, Vernon? What's wrong? Vernon held up the letter like it was contaminated with plague. Look at this. Look at the bloody address. Petunia squinted at the envelope and her face went pale. MX? What's MX? It's one of those made-up pronouns. Vernon sputtered. They're using their gender-neutral title nonsense. And how do they know about the cupboard? We've never told anyone Harry sleeps there. Harry, who had been listening from their usual spot at the breakfast table, felt their heart skip. A letter addressed to them with a gender-neutral title? Someone, somewhere, had not only acknowledged their identity but had gone out of their way to use appropriate language. Can I see? Harry began, but Vernon was already tearing the envelope to shreds. Absolutely not. I won't have this transgender propaganda in my house. Vernon threw the pieces into the bin with the violence of someone disposing of evidence. Probably some perverted organization trying to recruit confused children. Well, they won't get their hooks into you, not while I'm alive. But the letters kept coming. By Wednesday, there were 3 more, each with increasingly creative variations. David Potter. H. A. Potter, any pronouns. Future Wizard H. Le Potter. Future Wizard. Vernon shrieked, waving the latest letter around like a weapon. Now they're trying to brainwash Harry with fantasy nonsense too. What's next? Are they going to claim magic is real? Don't be ridiculous, Vernon, Petunia said nervously, though she was eyeing the letters with something that looked suspiciously like recognition. Magic isn't real. Everyone knows that. Of course it's not real. But these perverted organizations will use anything to corrupt children's minds. First they confuse them about their gender, then they fill their heads with impossible nonsense about being special. Harry watched in fascination as their uncle's face went through its usual spectrum of colors. Uncle Vernon, maybe if you'd just let me read one. Over my dead body. By Thursday, the mail slot was practically vomiting letters. They came addressed to the spectacular H. Potter. H. Potter, gender fluid extraordinaire. H. and Potter, they them wizard. H. the Potter, future terror of transphobes. Vernon had taken to stationing himself by the front door each morning, armed with a cricket bat and a face like thunder. The moment a letter appeared, he would pounce on it with the fury of a man protecting his home from invasion. This is harassment, he ranted to Petunia, who was nervously wringing her hands. I'm going to call the police. This is clearly some sort of organized campaign. What would you tell them, dear? Petunia asked weakly. That we're being attacked by letters. Letters promoting the transgender agenda. Letters that somehow know our private business. Letters that are trying to fill Harry's head with ridiculous ideas about being special. I'm special, Harry said mildly, earning themselves a glare that could have melted steel. You are not special. Vernon roared. You are a confused teenage girl who needs proper guidance, not encouragement for your delusions. But Harry had managed to retrieve one letter from the chaos, a particularly creative one addressed to H. and Potter, pronoun royalty, and had hidden it in their room. That night, by the light of their small lamp, they read it with growing amazement. The letter was from something called Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and it was inviting Harry to attend. Not only that, but it was written in language that seemed to understand exactly who Harry was. Dear future student, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. We understand that identity is a journey, and we are committed to supporting all our students as they discover who they truly are. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. We look forward to welcoming you to our inclusive magical community. Term begins on the 1st of September. We await your alibi no later than the 31st of July. Yours sincerely, Professor M. McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. P.S. Our dormitory assignments are flexible and can accommodate any housing needs. Please don't hesitate to discuss your preferences with your head of house. Harry read the letter 3 times, their hands shaking. Magic? Wizardry? A school that not only accepted different identities but actively welcomed them? It had to be too good to be true. But as the days passed and the letters continued arriving in increasingly impossible numbers, Harry began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was more to this than elaborate pranks. By Friday, Vernon had boarded up the mail slot with 3 planks of wood and enough nails to build a small boat. There, he announced triumphantly, "Let's see them get through that." The letters started coming down the chimney. Vernon's roar was cut off as dozens of envelopes cascaded into the fireplace like confetti. How are they doing this? Petunia was staring at the letters with a look of growing panic. Vernon, maybe we should just. Now. I will not surrender to the woke mafia. Vernon began stuffing newspapers up the chimney with manic determination. If they think they can intimidate Vernon Dursley, they've got another think coming. Saturday brought letters through the bathroom window, the kitchen vent, and somehow through the gaps around the electrical outlets. Vernon responded by taping plastic bags over every opening in the house, creating what looked like a crime scene investigation. "This is mental," Dudley observed, watching his father duct tape the cat flap shut. "Are you sure the freak isn't just ordering these themselves?" "With what money?" Vernon demanded. "And how would they coordinate this kind of campaign? This is clearly the work of professionals." "What kind of professionals?" Harry asked innocently. "The International Transgender Wizard Conspiracy." Vernon paused in his taping. "Don't mock me, girl. There are powerful organizations out there with deep pockets and radical agendas. They prey on confused children like you. By offering them free education. By filling their heads with nonsense about being special and different. By encouraging their delusions instead of helping them accept reality." Harry wanted to point out that reality seemed to include letters that materialized out of thin air, but they suspected Vernon wasn't in the mood for logical observations. By Sunday, the house looked like a hurricane had hit it. Every window was boarded, every vent was sealed, and Vernon had even disconnected the phone in case they tried to contact us that way too. "Vernon," Petunia said nervously, "the neighbors are starting to talk." Mrs. Figg asked if we were fumigating for some sort of infestation. "We are." Vernon replied grimly. "A woke infestation." That's when the letters started appearing inside the house. Harry woke Monday morning to find 17 letters tucked under their pillow, 3 more in their school bag, and 1 actually folded inside their copy of Understanding Gender Identity, which Vernon had given up trying to confiscate after Harry kept replacing it faster than he could destroy it. The sound Vernon made when he discovered letters scattered throughout his precious living room was inhuman. "Right," he bellowed. "That's IT. We're leaving." "Leaving?" Petunia squeaked. "Leaving where?" "Somewhere they can't find us." "Pack your bags. We're going somewhere so remote, so isolated, that no woke wizard organization will be able to reach us." "Woke wizard organization?" Harry repeated. "Uncle Vernon, are you feeling all right?" "I am perfectly fine. It's the rest of the world that's gone insane." Which was how, on the eve of Harry's 16th birthday, the Dursley family found themselves huddled in a rickety hut on a rock in the middle of a storm-tossed sea, while Vernon patrolled the single room like a demented sentry. "Perfect," he announced, surveying their miserable accommodations. "No mail service, no internet, no way for those perverted recruiters to reach us." "Vernon," Petunia said weakly, "this is madness. We are hiding from letters. We're making a strategic retreat." Vernon corrected. "Sometimes you have to take drastic action to protect your family from corrupting influences." Dudley, who had been forced to abandon his PlayStation and video games for this adventure, was sulking in the corner. "This is stupid. Why can't the freak just ignore the letters?" "Because," Vernon said darkly, "they're designed to be irresistible to impressionable minds. They probably use psychological techniques developed by the same people who create cult recruitment materials." Harry, who was sitting on the mouldy mattress that constituted the hut's only furniture, couldn't help but be impressed by their uncle's creativity. "So your theory is that there's a massive transgender wizard cult that's targeting me specifically?" "Mock me all you want," Vernon said grimly. "But when you're older, you'll thank me for protecting you from their influence." "I'm almost 16, Uncle Vernon. How much older do I need to be before I'm allowed to make my own decisions about my identity and education? Old enough to see through obvious manipulation. And when will that be? 18? 21? 30? Vernon's mustache twitched. "When you stop believing in fairy tales about changing your gender and becoming a wizard." Harry lay back on the disgusting mattress and stared at the leaking ceiling. In a few hours, it would be their birthday. 16 years of living with people who saw their very existence as a problem to be solved. They closed their eyes and tried to imagine what it would be like to be somewhere they were actually wanted. Somewhere people used their pronouns without making it sound like a personal favor. Somewhere being different wasn't treated like a contagious disease. The storm outside seemed to be getting worse, and Harry found themselves hoping that maybe, just maybe, one of those impossible letters would find its way to this godforsaken rock. Not because they necessarily believed in magic, though at this point they were willing to consider it, but because the alternative was spending the rest of their life watching Vernon's face turn purple every time they dared to exist authentically. As they drifted off to sleep, Harry dreamed of green ink and acceptance letters, of a place where they could be themselves without apology, where their identity was celebrated rather than pathologized. They dreamed of belonging somewhere to someone who wouldn't see them as a problem that needed fixing. Little did they know that at the stroke of midnight, their dreams were about to become spectacularly, impossibly real. But first, they had to survive Vernon's increasingly unhinged attempts to protect them from their own authentic self. The irony, Harry thought drowsily, was that Vernon was so busy fighting imaginary enemies that he'd never noticed he'd become the real threat to his own family. Outside, the storm raged on, and somewhere in the distance, something very large was making its way across the choppy waters toward their pathetic refuge. Harry's 16th birthday was about to become the most memorable day of their life. Whether Vernon liked it or not,